It usually starts in silence. A slight sting when you sit too long. An itch you pretend isn't there. A shift in the chair that you hope no one notices. And then one day, a drive across town becomes uncomfortable. You avoid hard benches. You flinch at every trip to the toilet. But you say nothing. That's how it begins for most men over 55 who live with hemorrhoids and no dramatic diagnosis. No urgent event. Just a quiet erosion of comfort, one moment at a time. You won't hear about it in conversation, not among friends, not in waiting rooms, not even, often, with doctors. And yet, more than half of men past 50 will deal with it at some point. Some sooner, some later, few with any preparation, because no one teaches us what to expect when the body, bit by bit, starts asking for gentleness in places we never thought to protect. Victor never imagined it would be like this. He was 62 when it started, small symptoms he brushed off. He'd worked construction most of his life, didn't complain much. When the pain flared, he thought it was just strain, or age, or maybe a bad chair. But then came his granddaughter's piano recital. He sat for 10 minutes before quietly rising and retreating to the back of the room, standing for the rest of the concert, leaning against the wall, biting down with every shift of weight. He told no one, smiled through it. Afterwards, when he spoke about it, he didn't mention the pain first. He said, "I couldn't sit through a child's performance. What kind of man can't handle a folding chair?" It wasn't the physical pain that broke something open. It was the humiliation, the betrayal of his own body, the sense that something simple had become foreign, and that there was no one he could tell. That's the thing about this condition. It hides under the surface, not just in the body, but in our culture. It becomes something we endure alone. Through late-night pharmacy visits, discreet online searches, half-hearted sitz baths, and prayers that it won't get worse, but it does get worse. Not because the body is failing, but because it's being ignored. See, hemorrhoids aren't a failure. They're pressure. They're a lifetime of strain, hard chairs, poor fiber, long hours behind a wheel or on your feet. They're the result of mechanics, not morality. Think about the plumbing under your sink. Old pipes, constant pressure, a clog here, a bulge there. What do? You don't shame the pipe. You relieve the pressure. You support the system, but we don't do that with ourselves. Especially not with something so, let's be honest, undignified. Who wants to admit they dread the bathroom? That they carry wipes in their briefcase? That they know which chairs in the house are safe and which aren't? Most men would rather live in silence. Until that silence becomes too loud to ignore, the discomfort creeps into everything. How you sit, how you travel, how you sleep. You start to fear long car rides, weddings, barbecues. You're suddenly aware of every chair in every room, of every second you're upright. You avoid intimacy, afraid someone might see or feel something. You pretend you're tired. You make excuses, and still, you don't speak. Because this isn't the kind of pain we were taught to name. There's a particular kind of loneliness that comes from chronic discomfort no one else can see. It makes you cautious, smaller, more self-protective. You start to organize your day around avoidance. And when you do that long enough, it doesn't just change your habits. It changes who you are. Hemorrhoids, such a small word, almost comedic in tone. But for many men, it signals a quiet unraveling of ease, of presence, of physical trust. The body that once felt strong now feels suspicious. And the worst part? It happens in the part of the body we're least willing to accept vulnerability. But what if this didn't have to be hidden? What if we treated this the way we treat back pain, or cholesterol, or arthritis? What if this was just another chapter in the aging body? Not a shameful footnote, but a real part of the story. That's the shift that changes everything. Because once you can name it, you can address it. You can begin to look at how your digestion, your movement, your habits, even your history of strain, are all playing a role. And more than that, you can begin to recover not just your comfort, but your sense of control that will go there, carefully, clearly, without embarrassment. But it all starts here. Not in ointments, not in procedures, not in doctors' offices. It starts with telling the truth. And the truth is this: you don't have to live like this. Not with that pain. Not in that silence. Not anymore. It's strange, isn't it? How something as quiet as digestion can cause so much noise in our lives. Most of us never gave it much thought. We ate what we liked, when we liked. Maybe some days it ran smooth, other days not so much, but we moved on. A little discomfort here, a little straining there. That's just part of aging, right? Wrong. What most men don't realize, because no one ever tells us, is that your bowel habits are the single biggest influence on hemorrhoids. Not genetics, not age, not even weight, that it's what happens in the minutes you spend in the bathroom that sets the tone for everything else. The strain, the pressure, the subtle tension held in your lower gut. It builds slowly, over years, every time you pushed, every time you sat there too long, every time you waited too long to go, or rushed it when your body wasn't ready. These small moments shape the veins in your rectum like time shapes riverbanks, gradually, constantly, silently. And yet, we treat the symptom, not the stream. We buy creams. We curse the swelling. We blame stress or age or bad luck. But we almost never ask, what's actually going on inside me? Before the pain begins, let me tell you about Dimitro, 67, retired math teacher. His day started the same way for decades. Coffee, toast, morning paper, then half an hour in the bathroom. He called it his thinking time. But that thinking came with a price. Over the years, what was once routine became ritualized strain. His body got used to pushing hard every morning, whether it needed to or not. By the time he came to see me, he'd tried everything: cushions, suppositories, herbal teas. But no one had ever asked him about the way he went to the toilet. I asked him one question: do you feel urgency before you go, or are you just going out of habit? He looked at me blankly. I don't know. I just go. It's what I do. And that's the hidden truth. We don't listen to our bodies. We train them. Or rather, we override them. We go because it's time. We push because we think we should. We rush because the day is waiting. We sit with phones in hand, distracting ourselves from the very signals our body is trying to send. And what do we feed it? White bread, fried foods, red meat 3 nights a week. Not enough water. Not enough fiber. A slow-motion disaster. Years in the making. By the time discomfort appears, the damage is done, but it's not irreversible. Dimitro started small. Added oatmeal. Replaced white rice with lentils. Switched one daily coffee to warm water with lemon. Stood up the moment he was done. No lingering. No scrolling. No waiting for some imaginary complete feeling point. 3 weeks later, he called me. Doc, he said, I sat through an entire church service last Sunday. First time in 6 months, I didn't shift in the pew once. That's what small changes do. They restore dignity. They return you to yourself. But more than anything, they remind you that healing isn't always about medications. Sometimes it's about listening, softening, letting go of control and trusting that your body still knows how to work. If you let it, we think strength means pushing through. But when it comes to healing, especially here, strength means letting go. Letting go of habits that no longer serve you. Letting go of the shame of discomfort. Letting go of the idea that your body is your enemy. It's not. It's your partner. And if you're willing to hear what it's been trying to say all this time, softly, patiently, through pressure and pain, it will respond. It always does. The next shift? Movement. Not aggressive workouts. Not squats or weightlifting, but the kind of natural, daily motion that keeps your blood flowing and your gut awake. Because the next layer of this story isn't just what we eat, it's how we move. Movement used to be something we didn't think about. You got up, you worked, you walked, you climbed. Even if your job kept you at a desk, your life still had motion. You stood in line, carried bags, tended the yard, walked to a friend's house. But something happens after 55. The radius shrinks. Your world slowly becomes the kitchen, the chair, the toilet, the bed. First, it's convenience. Then it's preference. Eventually, it becomes fear. Fear of pain. Fear of fatigue. Fear of that one wrong move that might make the pressure flare up again. And so, men stop moving. Not because they're lazy, but because pain teaches avoidance. You walk less. Sit more. Then sit differently. Then choose only soft chairs. Then only short walks. Then only routes with rest stops. Then, one day, you stop altogether. What you don't realize is that immobility is the fuel hemorrhoids live on. The less you move, the slower your blood flows. The slower your blood flows, the more your veins swell. The more they swell, the more pressure you feel. The more pressure you feel, the less you want to move. It's a vicious circle. And it's silent no one sees it from the outside. You look fine, maybe a little stiffer, a bit slower, but inside, you feel like your own body is becoming unfamiliar. That was Iyer's story. He was 70, retired bus driver, spent decades on the road, sitting 10 hours a day. After retirement, he thought the back pain would fade. But what surprised him most wasn't the back. It was below, the burning, the itching, the swelling. After even short trips to the store. He tried to rest more, sit on cushions, stay home. But nothing changed until one day his wife, who'd seen enough, handed him an old walking stick and said, "You're still alive. Act like it." So he did, 10 minutes a day, around the block, slowly, carefully, without headphones, without phone, just motion. He walked through the discomfort, and something shifted, not just in his body, but in his face, in his posture, in the way he spoke. "I forgot what it felt like to take up space," he told me. "I was living like I didn't want to be seen." Motion returned something to him, not youth, not speed, but dignity, because movement isn't about burning calories or building muscle. Not anymore. It's about circulation, stimulation. It's about rhythm, the gentle pump of blood that keeps tissues healthy, oxygen moving, healing happening. Without it, every system slows. Your gut slows. Your lymphatic system slows. Even your mind begins to fog. And so the most powerful therapy becomes the simplest one. Walk, not fast, not far, not for anyone else. Just to remind your body that it's still a living thing, not a chair-bound sculpture of who you used to be. Move with music. Move to the kitchen and back 5 times. Move outside, into air, into light. Each step whispers, "I still exist." And that whisper, when repeated, becomes a voice. And that voice becomes strength. But the truth is, even with good food, and even with motion, many men still suffer. Because they're treating only the body and not the part of themselves that's quietly breaking. What happens when your pain becomes a secret? When your discomfort becomes isolation? Pain has a strange way of shaping a man. Not just how he moves, or sits, or walks, but how he thinks, how he relates to himself, how he carries his story, especially when that pain lives in a place no one talks about. There's something about rectal discomfort that feels especially humiliating. It's not just physical, it's personal. It touches childhood fears, bathroom shame, the old idea that this part of the body should remain invisible, untouched, unspoken. So we pretend it doesn't exist. That we sit through dinners pretending we're comfortable. We pull away from touch, not because we don't want connection, but because we fear being discovered. We tell ourselves it's not that bad, that it will pass, that real men don't complain. But while the body flinches, something deeper begins to retract. The man inside begins to shrink, not because of weakness, but because of silence. I remember Alexander, 68, former football coach, grandfather of 5. Strong voice, firm handshake, commanding presence. But when we talked privately about his symptoms, he couldn't look me in the eye. He leaned forward, lowered his voice, and asked, "Is this normal? Or is it something wrong with me?" I told him what I'll tell you now. This is normal. What's not normal is the shame around it. See, when you live with constant irritation, bleeding, itching, especially in silence, your entire nervous system shifts into tension. You begin to clench without realizing. Your sleep suffers. Your patience wears thin. You speak less, laugh less, let your world shrink. Slowly, you cancel plans because you don't want to explain. You stop traveling, too risky. You avoid dates, even hugs. You become a man sitting in a small world, slowly pulling the shades. And it's not because of the hemorrhoids themselves. It's because of what they steal. Ease. Ease in your body. Ease in your movements. Ease in connection. That ease is what men miss most. Not energy. Not youth. Not speed. Ease. The ability to just be, without hiding, without managing, without guarding. That's what this condition robs first. And that's why it matters that we talk about it. Not as a joke, not as an embarrassment, but as a human experience. Because once you name it, the condition, the frustration, the shrinking, you can stop blaming yourself. This isn't about failure. It's about pressure. And pressure, physical, emotional, digestive, can be relieved, but only when we stop pretending nothing's wrong. Alexander cried that day, not from pain, but from relief, because he wasn't alone, because someone finally told him, "You're not disgusting. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're just hurting, and that's allowed." And with that truth came a new kind of courage, he told his wife. They rearranged the bathroom. They found a specialist. They added fiber. He started walking again, not because he was suddenly healed, but because he felt seen. And when a man feels seen, he stops hiding. And when he stops hiding, healing begins. Because the worst part of hemorrhoids isn't the pain. It's the way. That pain isolates you. But connection is the medicine shame cannot survive. Oh, now the question becomes, once we stop hiding, how do we actually heal? How do we move from relief to recovery? Healing doesn't start with medication. It starts with permission, permission to slow down, permission to change habits you've had for decades, permission to stop pretending everything is fine when it isn't. But most men skip this step. They go straight to creams, suppositories, home remedies passed down in whispers. And sometimes, yes, those things help. A little, but not for long. Because treating hemorrhoids only on the surface is like patching a leak without checking the pressure in the pipes. You'll be back in that pharmacy aisle soon, frustrated, embarrassed, maybe worse off. Real recovery happens when you rebuild the system that failed, gently, patiently, without shame. Let's be specific. The three pillars of true recovery are soft stool, healthy circulation, consistent care, simple, yes, easy, not always, but powerful. Soft stool means less straining, which means less pressure on the veins. Healthy circulation means the tissues get the oxygen they need to heal. Consistent care means daily support, not occasional rescue. Let me introduce you to Volodymyr, 66, ran a bakery for 30 years. Big hands, loud laugh, stubborn as a stone. He came to me after a severe flare-up. Couldn't sit for more than 5 minutes. Was avoiding social gatherings. His wife noticed he'd become quieter, withdrawn. He'd tried every over-the-counter option. He even bought a donut pillow, which he refused to use in public. I asked him one question. How often? Do you drink water? He laughed. Does coffee count? It didn't. Not for this. His diet was solid, rich in homemade soups and vegetables, but he wasn't hydrated. And that small, overlooked factor was the missing piece. Without water, even fiber can't help you. Think of fiber like a sponge. Without fluid, it dries out, and instead of softening stool, it makes it harder. That's why many men who eat healthy still struggle. We added two simple things to his day. A glass of warm water first thing in the morning. A 15-minute walk after lunch. 2 weeks later, he was sitting through Sunday dinner again. Not cured. Not perfect. But no longer suffering. That's what recovery looks like. Relief without fear. He also made one more change. One he called the hardest. He stopped sitting on the toilet with his phone. I didn't realize how long I was staying in there. He said, it was my one quiet place. But I was sitting 15, 20 minutes, even when I was done. That's the secret no one talks about. Toilet time has become extended, distracted, pressure-filled. And every extra minute you spend down there stretches and irritates the veins. Volodymyr learned to go when he had the urge. Not out of routine, not to hide, just when his body asked. And when he was done, he stood up. That small habit change may have saved him from surgery. Here's the truth most men need to hear. Healing doesn't always mean adding. Sometimes it means subtracting, force, distraction, denial. Instead of pushing harder, you soften. Instead of more time, you give more attention. Instead of numbing the pain, you listen to it. You move toward healing not with heroism, but with honesty. And when your body starts to respond, even a little, that spark of hope reignites something else, your trust in yourself. Because nothing is more powerful than feeling capable again, capable of managing symptoms, capable of sitting through an event without fear, capable of being touched, loved, held, without guarding, flinching, pulling away. And that brings us to a space most men fear to enter, intimacy. Because pain, shame, and physical avoidance don't just stay in the bathroom, they follow you into the bedroom, into connection, into the quiet spaces where trust is built. They say intimacy is about touch, but often it begins much earlier, in the mind, in the quiet moments before you reach out, in the way your body lets itself be seen, in the trust that you'll be received, not judged, not pitted, not turned away. But what happens when your body is the one thing you no longer trust? That's what hemorrhoids steal from many men. Not just comfort, not just ease, but the willingness to be close. Not because they're afraid of rejection, but because they've already rejected themselves. You learn to dodge touch, to flinch from closeness. You invent reasons why tonight isn't a good night. You convince yourself that maybe I've just aged out of that part of life. But the truth is simpler and harder, that you're protecting your partner from your own shame. And in doing so, you push away the very thing that could help you heal. That I remember Sirhi, 72, married for over 40 years. He told me he loved his wife deeply, but hadn't been intimate with her in almost a year, not because of erectile issues, not because of conflict, because of embarrassment. I can't let her near me down there, he said. What if she notices? The swelling? The discomfort? What if she sees how I clench, how I wince, how I can't relax? So he pulled back, quietly, gently, until she stopped reaching, and the distance grew, not from lack of love, but from unspoken fear. That's the hidden cost of chronic conditions in sensitive places. They don't just impact the body. They reshape relationships. But here's what Sirhi learned, slowly, tenderly. After one honest conversation, most partners don't need you to be invincible. They need you to be real. He sat down with his wife and told her everything. She didn't recoil. She didn't pity. She didn't tease. She cried because she'd felt the distance too, but didn't know why. They started rebuilding, not through sex, but through touch. Holding hands longer, sitting closer, touching backs, touching shoulders. No pressure, no performance, just contact. And that, more than any prescription, brought his body back into safety, because the nervous system doesn't heal in fear. It heals in connection. If your body is always in alert mode, guarding, clenching, hiding, blood flow suffers, tension rises, healing slows. But when you feel safe, truly safe, everything shifts. Your breath softens. Your muscles release. Even your digestion improves. Intimacy, it turns out, is not just emotional medicine. It's physical therapy. So if you've been hiding, even from the person who loves you most, you're not alone. But you also don't have to stay hidden. Start small. A touch, a conversation. Not about sex, about comfort, about what hurts, about what you miss. And when that door opens, even a crack, it lets light in, and light, slowly, melts the armor. But for some men, the condition grows beyond discomfort. It begins to interfere with daily life in deeper ways. Bleeding, severe swelling, sleep disturbance, even depression. When that happens, it's time for something most men avoid at all. Costs, a real medical evaluation. By the time most men walk into a doctor's office about hemorrhoids, they've lived with it far too long. That they've tried the creams, the pills, the soaking. They've changed diets, bought every pillow in the pharmacy. They've adapted their lives in quiet ways, avoiding events, skipping travel, limiting movement, and still, the pain returns. Or worse, the bleeding starts. That's the breaking point for many. Not because it's dangerous right away, but because it's undeniable. Blood demands attention. But even then, most men hesitate. They tell themselves it's just a flare, that it will pass. That surgery is the last resort, something to be avoided at all costs. They fear the exam. They fear the embarrassment. They fear the word proctologist more than the pain itself. But here's the truth. Hemorrhoids, even advanced ones, are treatable. And the treatments are far more gentle and effective than they were 20 years ago. Today, we have options. Real ones. Non-surgical procedures. Outpatient treatments. Techniques that use light, heat, even tiny rubber bands. All designed to minimize pain and restore dignity. That you're not being cut. You're not being hospitalized for days. You're not losing control. That you're regaining it. Let me tell you about Andre. He was 74, had suffered for almost a decade. His biggest fear was not pain, but dependency. I can handle discomfort, he said. But if this ever makes me need help to go to the bathroom, I won't be able to live with that. So he avoided care. Until one night, the bleeding didn't stop. His wife drove him to the hospital, shaking. What he discovered shocked him. The doctor, calm, kind, direct, explained that his case, while uncomfortable, was common, treatable. In fact, he didn't even need full surgery. A 15-minute in-office procedure. No general anesthesia. He walked out the same day. 1 week later, he sat in my office, a different man. "I can't believe I waited this long," he said. "I feel free." Not just in his body, in his mind, in his life. That's the other thing medical treatment gives you, beyond healing, peace of mind. Because the worst part of undiagnosed or untreated conditions isn't the discomfort. It's the anxiety, the wondering, the dread. What if this is cancer? What if this never goes away? What if I lose the ability to sit, to move, to enjoy? A proper medical evaluation answers those questions. It replaces fear with facts. It turns suffering into a plan. And when you have a plan, even a simple one, your body calms down. The body loves clarity. It doesn't need perfection, just a direction. So if you've been waiting, silently, stoically, for things to get better on their own, ask yourself, how many more months are you willing to suffer before choosing relief? How much of your life are you willing to shrink? And what would it mean, really mean, to wake up tomorrow without fear of the bathroom? For most men, that's not a fantasy. It's a phone call. It's a conversation. It's a decision to stop surviving and start recovering. And when that decision is made, something unexpected happens. The future opens up again, not just as an idea, but as a place you can walk toward with strength. And in that new space, the one beyond fear, beyond shame, beyond silence, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in years. Not just comfort, not just hope, but freedom. You remember that moment we started with, the man sitting quietly, adjusting in his chair, the slight grimace, the way he shifted his weight, the flicker of pain, not just physical, but emotional. Now imagine him standing up, not suddenly cured, not magically transformed, but lighter, calmer, freer, because now he understands his body. He knows the signs. He knows the tools. He's no longer hiding, guessing, fearing. That man could be anyone. He could be Alexander, or Dimitro, or Serhi. He could be the man you see in the mirror. Because here's what this journey has really been about. Not just hemorrhoids, not just pain, not even healing. That it's been about ownership, taking ownership of the discomfort, of the habits that crept in, of the silence you wrapped around your suffering. And then, choosing to live differently. That choice isn't easy. It means facing what you've ignored. It means changing how you eat, how you sit, how you move, how you ask for help. It means opening your mouth and your heart when you'd rather stay silent. But every time you do, you reclaim something that years of discomfort try to take. Dignity, not pride, not ego. Dignity, the quiet belief that your body, even now, is worth caring for, that your health, even now, is worth protecting, that your peace, even now, is worth defending. Too many men suffer in silence, thinking they're being strong, but true strength? It's in awareness, in attention, in the decision to walk toward healing, one step, one change, one conversation at a time. And if you've made it this far, if you've listened, reflected, maybe even seen yourself in these stories, you've already taken that step that you've already told yourself. I'm not done yet. And that matters more than any symptom. Because healing isn't just about feeling better, it's about living fully to So here's my final invitation. Take one of these ideas, one story, one change, one insight, and try it. Just one. Add warm water in the morning. Walk the block after lunch. Speak to your partner. Make that doctor's appointment. Stop scrolling on the toilet. Do it not to fix everything overnight, but to remind your body that you're listening, that you're still here. And if this episode helped, if it made you feel less alone, more informed, or even just a little bit seen, I invite you to support this channel. Like the video. Share it with someone who needs it. Subscribe for more real, respectful conversations about aging, health, and the quiet courage it takes to keep moving forward. Your presence here matters, because somewhere, right now, another man is sitting quietly, adjusting in his chair, wondering if he's the only one. Let's show him he's not. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay curious, and above all, stay connected.